If you watched our clips about North Carolina and NC State's matchup on Saturday going into the weekend, Giglio and I were on the same page. This is an important matchup for both teams for a variety of reasons. I think you and I both agreed that Carolina needed it a little bit more. It was supposed to be a Q1 win, but coming out of the weekend, it's no longer a Q1 win. But I don't really care about that stuff. There's a longer conversation we can have about that. So here's how there is so much to unpack from North Carolina's win over NC State on Saturday that I think it's a good idea that we just kind of rapid fire this, Giglio.
Okay.
What do you think? We want to do that way? We'll do it that way.
Let's do it that way.
All right, so let's actually talk about like the game itself before we get into the I'm waving my hands all like that, all of the other stuff, if you will. Let's talk about the actual game at first, which to me, it's like same as it ever was between the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels. It's a great time for the Tar Heels, honoring the 1993 team, even if it's a little bit eye-opening to see all those players looking old. You know, honoring the current women's team for the week that they had with top 25 wins, including wins over NC State and Duke. Hansborough was in the house to pass the rebounding torch to Armando Bacot. That was cool to see. And the win itself. And then for the Wolfpack, it's another meeting that will get fans to feel everything from extreme anger to resignation. That was my quick synopsis of Saturday's matchup.
Armando Bacot's pretty good, too.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
So is RJ Love.
Yeah. Or RJ Davis.
Excuse me. I combined the two of them there. That's
You
fine.
did.
I thought the first half is as good as NC State can play. They ran stuff through DJ Burns. Mm-hmm. He was finding the right shooters. Casey Morcell was knocking down the open shots. I thought Carolina did a really good job of limiting Terquavion Smith and Jarkel Joyner in the first half, but I thought NC State had a nice response. I enjoyed the matchup between Bacot and Burns. Thought they each kind of had their moments, particularly in the first half, but second half, I don't know how you really evaluate it by the time the Smith injury or Smith foul or whatever you want to call it. Carolina had the game under control.
They did, yeah.
And it's 3:03. We haven't mentioned fouls. So, fouls were part of the game. The free throws.
That's part of the rapid fire.
The free throw shooting prowess was part of the game. I didn't watch the game in real time and go, wow, I think Bert Smith, Tommy Morrissey, and Jeffrey Clark got together before the game today and decided they were going to call 27 fouls on NC State and only 16 on Carolina. I didn't watch the game and come away with some grand conspiracy about the officiating in real time.
Yeah.
Could we go back and look at it and see some missed calls? I'm sure. That happens.
Sure.
But I thought RJ Davis in particular, did I do it again? No. I thought Davis in particular in the first half was Carolina's best player. And really, he banks in the three, which was, anytime you get a shot like that, you're usually going to win. Because it's a little bit of a freebie, gives you a little bit of a boost. But I thought he was really the one, while Carolina was struggling to find its footing and Bacot was in foul trouble, I thought Davis was the one holding down the fort and really kind of stabilizing things for North Carolina.
I think RJ Davis is the unsung hero of a relatively young ACC season. We still have plenty of basketball left to be played throughout this month, February, and obviously we got the ACC tournament. So I allow for the era that we're in with transfers, freshmen playing, that we haven't truly there's still some growth for some of these teams. This is not how it used to be. But I'll say this in terms of consistency for the Tar Heels. RJ Davis has been their best player, even though he is the player that we do not talk about night in, night out. We talk about Armando Bacot night in, night out for obvious reasons. The guy is a machine. He is a double-double machine, and he called his shot going into Saturday's game. He did it. It was pretty impressive to watch. And then we get caught up in the Caleb Love roller coaster, right?
Caleb Love is really veering into Rashad McCants territory. 05 Rashad McCants, meaning don't take all the other stuff out of it.
Sure.
It's becoming like either he really needs to focus and get into his groove, or they need to get to a point where he's ignored, because he can't go 3 of 14 and miss all of the shots that he is and take away from Davis and Bacot. Yeah. He needs to completely buy in and play his role on this team. And that's a concern. If I'm North Carolina, I have that concern about Love right now.
Yeah, I do think that Caleb Love is the key factor to whether this team's going to go far in the NCAA tournament or not. Caleb Love being locked in and doing exactly what you just described is going to be the difference between them going out early or out late or in the NCAA tournament or their game against Duke, although given history, he might be so locked in that he'll find those threes against.
He's always played well against Duke.
So that's something to consider, but that's easy to do. And that might be a larger issue with the Tar Heels that it's kind of been nagging at me the entire time. You and I were talking about this before the start of the show. We've seen Carolina teams that are in that championship window or they're expected to be in that championship window put the hammer down. And they usually put the hammer down when it comes to State.
At home in the Smith Center.
Didn't see that.
Yeah, I mean, there's concerning parts, and I think Love is a big part of that. They didn't have Puff Johnson. I feel like a broken record when I talk about Puff Johnson because I feel like he is someone who could step up and really be a difference maker for them. I thought Pete Nance back in the lineup, even though it's still only spurts from him, that's big for Carolina too. So to your point, while Carolina does have a lot of the same parts back, Love hasn't been the same player. And then Nance, of course, is not manic, but they're still learning how to play with Nance. And, of course, you throw in Nance's injury. Again, North Carolina is a tournament team. North Carolina is a team that could easily go to Greensboro and win the ACC championship. Those aren't the concerns. This is a team that came back, though, to win the national championship. And to your point that you've made about college basketball this year, Houston lost to Temple this week. So there's no monster out there, okay? This is going to be one of those brackets at the end, and my guess is it's going to be a new coach who wins it, and we're going to go, okay. That's because right now, the throne of college basketball, we could sit here and say it's Bill Self, and maybe it is.
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe it is. But are you really truly terrified of Bill Self in a tournament that doesn't take place in New Orleans or the year doesn't end in 2? No.
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. All right. To the free throws, to the officiating. In conference play, North Carolina is the best at getting to the line. It's something that Hubert Davis, in a weird sort of way, we've gone to an old school type North Carolina squad where he doesn't want them to take a bunch of threes. They want to go through Armando. They want R.J. Davis to drive. It was very successful against NC State, which speaks to a larger trend between the Wolfpack and the Tar Heels. That's usually how these games play out between the two of them. So when you have a season where Carolina is the best in conference play at getting to the line, and NC State is the worst in terms of free throw rate of putting teams on the line, we saw an extreme version of that play out. But it's consistent with the Keats era of aggressive defense, okay? In 22, they finished 11th in free throw rate, 8th in 21, last place in 20 and 19, and then 10th in 18. They're hovering anywhere between 30 to 40%. It's not a conspiracy. It's just the byproduct of the style. You got to live with it, right? And I'll do my best to strip away like all the social media fodder that has been populating my timeline the last 48 hours. Because every fan base complains about the refs. Every fan base. Carolina fans will complain about some of the games that have just been happening, like the UVA game, the Pitt game, etc. And NC State fans will complain about the refs. Every fan base complains about the refs, okay? But I am with the folks who would like more consistency from officiating. I'll give you an example. I went to 2 games on Saturday. I was at Cameron Indoor for the Duke-Miami game, and then I headed over to Chapel Hill to watch the State-Carolina game. In Cameron Indoor Stadium, there was live combat under the basket, okay? I mean, you're hearing bodies hit the floor, bodies banging together, and they swallowed the whistle. I'm okay with that, by the way. I don't mind them letting them play if that's what the kind of game it's going to be.
I think there has been an unspoken rule this year to let the players play more. I've noticed that, particularly that Louisville State game that I went to, when you're on the floor, you're watching, you're going, this game's very physical, but I'm also not noticing the officials. So that's good.
And that's okay with it. I like that.
Yeah.
So I go to Chapel Hill where it's playing out like you would expect. You know, Carolina's driving, they're drawing some fouls. But here's where the consistency comes in. Are you going to let them play or not? You're going to let them play or not? And then they also kind of got lost in things later on with the Terquavion Smith foul and the ejection, everything else, which gets us to Leaky Black's ejection following Baby T's injury. The flagrant 2 was a reaction to the result, okay? Not the foul itself. You take out Terquavion Smith on a stretcher in a very scary moment. I'm not surprised they elevate it to a flagrant 2. Do I agree with it? No, I don't agree with it. I can just understand why that happens because oftentimes officials will give you the call based on the result than the actual foul because it should have been a flagrant 1 at best. Again, not the first time I've seen this played out. Everyone at the Smith Center went about it the way that you would expect when a rivalry opponent goes down with an injury. Fans did the supportive clap. All that, right? Nothing was out of sorts. And then they booed the officials when they ejected Leaky Black, which, again, not surprised. It's whatever. It made for a weird whiplash moment in the Smith Center, but I'm not surprised. I can see why Carolina fans were upset that they booted Leaky Black from that game for something that I don't think you should have been booted for.
Yeah, I don't think the call was right, but you're right. It is the result of the play,
it's the
not
result.
the actual action.
Armando Bacot wearing shades after the game.
It's all part of it. I'll give you the Tom O'Brien on that one. That means he's paying attention to state. That means he cares.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's the feature, not a bug part about the rivalry between NC State and Carolina. There's a lot of talk of we don't care, but your actions dictate otherwise. I was cool with it at first, by the way, the shades after the fact, because I'm chronically online. I understood what he was doing because NC State and DJ Burns had the sunglasses promotion and everything else.
But I think this was a direct response to the Terquavion Smith.
But that's when I
video.
ended up having a problem, right? So he said that he was specifically doing it for Terquavion Smith. Vashti Hurd actually followed up with Armando Bacot. Here's the audio of why I thought it was a little like time and place thing.
Assuming that you saw the video.
Yeah, also, too, I just want to say a prayer for Terquavion, too. I want to make sure he's straight. And, I mean, Terquavion is a great player, cool guy, but I definitely wanted to poke a little fun at him, and we'll see him again, too.
I see your glasses are Prada, though.
Yeah, these Prada glasses. Prada glasses. I was going to wear my black ones, but Deja Kelly, she lost them, but she ordered me a new pair.
That's where I thought time and place with Bacot could have waited. You know, maybe you had this thing planned, but at that time, we didn't know what was going on with Terquavion Smith. We didn't know, man. Last time we saw Terquavion Smith, he was in the hospital. He got taken out in a stretcher. We don't know if the season's over for him, right? So I thought it was a little time and place. You know, maybe not now. Maybe do that when you go to Raleigh and you beat NC State there. That was my only quibble with it. I don't think I'm being harsh on Bacot when I say, hey, man, that probably could have been something to do later. And then Smith being out later that night. We'll close on this. Considering everybody feared the worst, like I just mentioned a few hours earlier, nobody's really mad that a college kid was able to go about his business after the fact, right? Like there was some picture that was making the rounds that he was out and about later that night. I mean, it went from, oh man, we hope he's okay, to, okay, great, he's okay. I would expect him to go about his business like a normal college student if he's totally okay, right? Like, I don't think that's... Am I out of turn on that?
No.
Okay. So, I just... The reaction that some people had to, like, well... He shouldn't have been out. Why not? If he's okay, man, let him be a college guy, man. And then we'll see what happens. He's apparently day-to-day. We'll see if he actually plays against Notre Dame.
We're all day-to-day, Joe.
I know we are. Like I like to say, death is a pre-existing condition.